I may be considered to number. Such poets are the Brooks Brothers version of Miles Davis to his Space Jesus version, which you will see manifested in his poetics, which he explains in terms of Space Jesus, Miles Davis, and you will see in his footwear, about which you may draw your own conclusions. Yeah? What else do you need to know about him? He's a biographer who has wrestled the recalcitrant and wretched Paul Zukowski to the floor on multiple occasions, wresting from him permissions to write the great biography of Louis Zukowski. And he is a critic and a scholar with a range covering everything from the melodramatic perversity of Michael Moorcock to the melodramatic perversity of Algernon Charles Swinburne. He is here. His latest book from Mad Hat Press is Zion Off-Ramp, and we are lucky to be looking at this guy's footwear. Mark Scroggins, give it up.
Tip your bartender. I have been working on this long poem, Zion Off-Ramp, for 8 years now, and I thought I would read two shortish sections, one very, very old and one very, very recent. And the old one embeds an elegy at its end to a very, very dear friend of mine from grad school, whom Joe will know, Srinivasa Ravamudan. It's called Number 9, Guru Talk. Nobody's a hero to his partner, or the partner he's left at home for 20 years, or the nymph he's left lovelorn on her island, or the one-eyed giant whose eye he's poked out. Only Jeeves knows the proper temperature for Worcester's shaving water. Only Alice knows the secret mint sauce for Gertrude's little saddles of mutton. In his latter years, he took to writing his own epitaphs, select bits of his obituary. Triumphant, scrupulous, and smug conqueror of the inconsequential. A broken reed to his enemies, to his friends, a smiling Judas. His workshop littered with bitter and misbegotten fragments, armed with just enough ambition to recognize the triviality of his failures. The saving grace of his misanthropy was that, like so many of his projects, it rarely got beyond its beginnings. The first step in learning to despise humanity, he said, is learning to despise yourself. Only the safety valve knows the true story of the boiler's woes. Why, she asks, does the tree still bloom even when its roots been cut to make way for the sidewalk? It makes you look, she said, avuncular, which I didn't realize meant sexless. It all revolves around the root, as Bootsy says, comes back to and grows out of, hovers over and lightly touches, like my fingers on your belly, my lips on your shoulder, which elicit a savage laugh, uncomfortable silence, a raw deal we were born into, elliptical balls and pockets all askew. Sometimes you barely hear the muscle cars and motorbikes in the distance. Up close, it's all crickets and frogs, sometimes a goose sneezing asleep, a cat anguishing in heat. Sometimes it's as real as a live feed, and the pressure's so low it barely hisses around the edges. Last week, they tore up the sidewalks, scraped them down to the dirt, and filled them in with white stones and fine sand. This week, it's new asphalt, already marked by bicycle tires and running shoes, storied in wonderful industrial uses of rubber. My teeth to your ear, written words like fingers down the spine, climbing the ribs like fingers on the keys. Vein at my ankle snakes back and forth like a river to the delta, winding down and slowing up. And that friend of my youth who taught me to cook showed me the difference between Brahmin and Yadav, Londoner and Tamil, untangled with spidery fingers the webs of Mallarmé's lace, is unexpectedly dead at 54. I will read of the subaltern with grave and downcast eyes. I will wear my morning fedora. I will put on my red shoes. And number 116. We are offered a tour of the shiny new Chabad Gaza. Just at dusk, sunset multiplied across the water's seasonably tranquil waves. Maps have been redrawn, left and right. Hatchets have been buried, sometimes with less enthusiasm than hoped. It was hatred, really, that kept us going down all those long, dull days. We had reluctantly signed away the names conferring individuality: Child Herald, Gunslinger, Pascal Wanderlust. And realizing love was too thin a myth to bind us, embraced a beautiful unifying animus. The condition of memory is hatred, a rare and expensive pigment. It stains the canvas through, over time shifts color, may lose or gain intensity, can never quite be extirpated. The recording angel, once as human as you or I, has nothing on the ever-accreting archive of embarrassments and cruelty. To read history against the grain, to read history at all, I have much to answer for. The foxes on the hill, the raccoons scuttling around the dumpster have their tenacity of claw and sharp white teeth. The music is history remix, which no longer echoes down the fluorescent lit tunnels and holes. Sifted and leavened, bread of space and reconciliation, season's last ladybug, fled fire or cold, crawls like a broken beast, last week of always a century, dropped beat, smooth inflection along the rib cage, surface papery, water damage. The flyers didn't do justice to the real thing, its whiteness. Distant napping, distant waking sounds, scratches and rustles of rich discomfort. The cut worm, despite its ever amiable nature, neither forgives nor forgets the plow. To do ill in return, printed at the foot of the register receipt, beneath the time and date over a frieze of smiling icons. Are these my wisdom texts? The bit about the stranger in the land? About the eye for an eye? About smiting and beating small as the dust? About mercy flowing like a river? They read me right to left and back again. Their shares bite deep in my back, furrow the soil of scattered flesh, odds and ends, gobbets and orts. Speak plainly, at least. Use words for their right meanings. Even now, a little child is trapped under the broken sift of a building, bombed with my and your money. That is realer than all my petty angst and mortifications. That makes the seasons turning colder even than our metered mechanical glee. This chilly morning offers cold distances. The new beach condos rise up and build themselves on the other side of the world. Someone laid a grid, a lattice work over the old familiar picture. Your job, like paint by numbers, is to fill each tiny space anew. Here are the paint pots.